Amper 'n kwart van alle geregistreerde kiesers woon in Gauteng. Peilings wys die ANC kan hier minder as 50% steun kry, soos in 2016 gebeur het. Die DA het sedert 2016 probeer wys hulle kan beter as die ANC hier regeer. Ek verwelkom nou vir Panyaza Lesufi, die adjunkvoorsitter van die ANC in Gauteng, en Solly Msimanga, die DA se premierskandidaat. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Panyaza, how does the ANC's position on expropriation without compensation differ from that of the EFF?
Our approach is very, very simple, to ensure that everyone benefit out of the land. There must be no one that is excluded because South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
But on ownership, who will own the land?
Everyone. The state must play a meaningful role in ensuring that those that need social support in terms of social infrastructure, in particular housing, clinics, schools, if that land can be utilized for those purposes, government must do that. Remember, we're the first institution in 1955 to declare that South Africa belongs to all who live it. And therefore, anything that belongs to South Africa belongs to all South Africans.
Is this also the DA's position?
Well, we believe that land must be owned privately, must be owned by individuals. There is confusion coming from the EFF and the ANC in terms of who becomes the real owners of the land. We are saying that people must be owners in their own right, must have title to the land that they find themselves in. And, we are saying there's nothing wrong with Section 25. Section 25 actually then, gives, leeway in terms of what Ntate Lesufi has been talking about. If you want to do expropriation, there's ways in which you can go about it. But we believe that expropriation should go with fair compensation. What we need to do is to remove the political meddling into the process and ensure that there is a judicial committee that can look into the issue of fair compensation.
Because the Gauteng government, Panyaza, has said that it will expropriate land in this province before eventual final decisions about policy.
Actually, the only province that have an exciting program called Rapid Land Release. We have made an audit of the land that is owned by the state. We want to release that land to our people. We are saying there is land that we can just put electricity, water and sewer and release it to people that need housing. Because land in Gauteng is different from agricultural land. And therefore, it's very, very important that when you speak about land in Gauteng, it's for economic purpose, but at the same time, is to protect the weak and the vulnerable.
Would you agree, the DA, that private land might be expropriated in this province to satisfy the very urgent problem of urban land hunger?
Well, I think, there needs to be a different look to how we have been settling people in Gauteng. And Gauteng does have pockets of rural areas. If you go to the northern parts of Tshwane or Pretoria, your Hammanskraal, your Valmansdal, your Bronkhorstspruit, and the surrounding areas, where you do still have agriculture, very strong agricultural holdings. And I think we need to have a conversation to say, how do we then begin to settle people? Because I promise you right now, even if we were to then say everybody gets a stand, at some point you're going to run out of land in Gauteng. So what we now need to then do is to say, how do we then see ourselves building cities of the future, where you are able to then bring people closer to work opportunities, closer to business opportunities, and that might mean that you need to then condense where you are able to then put people. And I think that's how we would want to approach it. Take Alexander as an example. Alexander initially was supposed to be accommodating about 70,000 families. Right now, there's over 1 million. How do you then make sure that you are able to fix the problem in Alexander if you cannot look into how you are able to then compress and make sure that you're able to then build upwards? So I think there should be a change in strategy going forward.
When voters are addressed by you, Panyazi, on your door-to-door campaigns, and they tell you they want to vote EFF because the EFF promises them the land and jobs now. How do you explain to them that the ANC's policy, which is slightly less radical than the EFF's on land, is better for the country, if indeed your policy is clear at all?
You should ask him, because they don't know where they stand.
Where do you stand?
No, wait. They don't know where they stand, and they are misleading South Africans. Actually, a vote for the DA is a vote for the EFF, in reality. And a vote for the EFF is a vote for the DA. But these people who are inconsistent, they've even put posters up to say stop the EFF, but they are running government with the EFF. They are working with the EFF. In Johannesburg, the same area that is quoting Alexander, people are invading land because they are scared to remove them, because if they remove them, they'll make the EFF angry and they will lose power. There's a political party that has lost its political identity, its ideology. You don't know where they stand on all issues. BEE, you don't know. Land, you don't know. work, job creation, you don't know. So you need to understand the position of the ANC. And the position of the ANC is simple. In everything that we do as the ANC. We don't do it in the assistance of any political party. We are not hungry for power. We don't want to go to and hold power at all expense and even sacrifice your ideological identity.
Well, I would disagree with that. First of all, you have a president and a deputy president that are begging the EFF to come back. Who are saying that we should start the negotiations. So we already know that the negotiations has already taken place or are already taking place. So that, goes without saying. That's number one. Number two, we've been very clear in terms of BEE. We've been very, very clear on the issue of land. You are the ones who have been dilly-dallying. We've said to you, Section 25 is very, very clear, which is a constitution that was adopted by yourselves. And now you are saying, no, let's relook at it. Isn't that the same thing that you are now accusing us of doing? Let's talk about the issue of policy certainty. Your president goes to Darfur and start saying, that land is not going to be expropriated and we are fine, nothing's going to change. Comes back, comes and talks to the people in the rural areas, says something that is totally different. And this is why we are having issues with attracting investment here, because there's no policy certainty. You're talking left and walking right.
Very briefly, your response?
It's just unfortunate that he's quoted things that he doesn't understand. Our president have never said we are not taking land back. Our president indicated one thing, that there are people that were denied access to land. There are people that were given 13% of the land, while other people had 87% of the land. That's injustice in any language. What you need to do is to rectify that injustice. And we have been clear on that particular part. And any other person that believes we don't have a position there, it's quite clear they're believing their own lies. But the reality is, this organization that is speaking on behalf does not even have a head of policy today. This organization that is speaking about had somebody that was leading policy, a woman that was fired. This organization is sensitive to women. You had Lindiwe Mazibuko, fired. You have Helen Zille, fired. You have Patricia Delile, fired. So any particular individual that carries a different view.
Okay, this is open a new docket against the DA, so yes, now your response again.
This is why voters will punish his organization, because they've been lying consistently. Nobody has fired Lindiwe Mazibuko. Lindiwe Mazibuko left to go and pursue another political career.
Wait.
No, just a moment. You had an opportunity. Gwen as well. Gwen resigned. Gwen resigned because she was saying that what she wanted to present has not been agreed upon by the party. Okay. But I want to answer a question that that Panyaza has been putting forward. To say that, there's no consistency. We've been running some of the best policies. That has created the majority of the jobs in South Africa. That goes without saying. The economy has been growing. No. I'm not. I'm talking. You're saying we don't have.
No, gentlemen. So before we
continue with
you say we don't have. You say we don't have policies. But I tell you, the policies that the DA has proven to be working, and this is why the economy is growing faster.
Okay. We don't know how voters will vote next Wednesday. Let's look at the record of elections since '94 in this province, which will come up on the screen now. We have since 2004, my apologies. The ANC started, Panyaza, at 68.4%, ended in the last general election at 53.5% and dipped under 50 in the 2016 elections. The DA has been on an upward trajectory. Is that not a vote of no confidence in the ANC's ability to properly manage this?
No, the ANC position is very clear. Our document is very, very important, called the Freedom Charter. It says the people shall govern. It doesn't say the ANC shall govern. It says the people shall govern. If the people are not happy with the ANC, they will express their views. Okay. And where the people are not happy with the African National Congress, we have not done any other thing. We accepted the outcome in Tshwane. We accepted the outcome in Johannesburg. We are renewing this movement. We went to a very important conference. We took very important decisions. This movement under the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa has brought confidence not only to the economy and to the people of this country, but also to the world. There are global institutions that have raised their hands to say Cyril Ramaphosa is the president that will grow.
Right, I'm going to put you in the hot seat soon, but Solly, this gentleman has been in the hot seat over language policy in Gauteng schools for a number of years. Will your government prioritise mother tongue education in the schools of Gauteng if you can form a government after the election?
And we've been very consistent on that. You don't eradicate something that is working because you want to normalize the anomalies that had been created, and I think that had been created consciously so. I've been saying, and he will tell you when I was still at the legislature, I've been saying that if you look into the history of Africa as a whole, Afrikaans is the only language that a child will be able, from crèche up to a professor level, to be able to get good and comprehensive education. What have we done in the last 25 years to make sure that a child will be able to learn isiZulu from crèche up to even a doctor's level? And it's something that instead of us looking into how do we then introduce and make sure that we invest in getting that particular education, we have actually then said, let's break that which has been working so that we can, have some kind of normality, which is something that, I don't think we should be chasing after. Look at China as an example. Look at other countries where, France, in developed countries where people are proud of their indigenous languages and have actually invested in educating people in those particular languages.
Panyaza,
we failed to do that.
Your response?
South Africa believes that everyone's language is important. That is why we've got 11 official languages. So you can study or learn using whatever language that you want to, whether your mother tongue or any other language that you feel comfortable with. And that's what we've been calling for. But if people want to use mother tongue language to exclude others and defend privileges, then there are limitations and there are problems.
What if that is not their intent?
Let me tell you. So what we have said, and we are doing it in Gauteng, is very, very simple. You can't allow our children to dance together at a restaurant when they eat at the birthday party. But when they have to go inside the classroom, you said, no, you can't be together. It does not make sense. Our children can study under one roof. Those that want to study in English can go in that English class, Afrikaans class, Zulu class. But when they have to play sport, they can play rugby together. They can play soccer together. So any other individual, therefore, that believes a certain language comes with certain privileges, that person is wrong. All languages are equal and all languages must be treated fairly.
Panyaza, I must stay with you for the moment. Was justice served after the Life Esidimeni tragedy?
Definitely. We really felt that when this strategy hit us, what did we do? We went to an ombudsman, and ombudsman said, ensure that we reward those that are victims. I personally chaired that committee of speaking to victims, and all the victims are excited about the way we have handled this particular matter. It's something that was unfortunate, something that I think we regret as a state, and something that must never happen again. But where we were advised and where we were directed and where we needed to provide necessary support, we did that without any further delay.
I think Panyaza Lesufi is being economical with the truth. It's on record. It's actually, there's a video clip of that particular moment where Jack Bloom in the legislature said, you are going to subject our people to hardship. You are going to send people to death. You are going to send people to abuse and neglect. And that's exactly what happened. And for you to then come back and say, look, we've learned from this, while you could have prevented this thing, you were told and you were arrogant in your response to say, no, we are doing this. But at the end and at the bottom of this was that there is people that benefited through tenders. That is what has happened here. You took an institution that was helping and working together with people. You then realized that because, friends are not benefiting, you then broke that down. You sent people into NGOs that were not properly registered. You sent people into institutions that didn't even have the slightest of ideas in terms of how to deal with mental patients. And this is why we ended up with 144 people that ended up, dead. And still today, 21 people are still missing. And now to be told that, there's been compensation. Yes, there's been compensation, but what is actually happening? Why haven't we retrieved some of that money, taxpayers' money that we should have retrieved, from the people that took the decisions?
Panyaza, briefly.
Unfounded allegations cannot assist the DA to score cheap political points. The reality is, in the report of the DPT Chief Justice, Dikgamo Seneke, where it says that is about tenders, nowhere. Where does it indicate that there is any politician or any particular person that benefited out of that transaction? Nowhere. Reality is, don't score cheap political points over dead bodies.
No.
Okay.
But let's
Thank you. We must move on. Solly, the hot seat is yours now.
Yeah.
Who must pay for Gauteng's very fancy new toll roads? The DA propagates that e-toll must be disbanded. Who then must pay?
Well, I can tell you right now, we're already paying for that. We're already paying for it. Go and look at your car renewal license. You have an item there called a tear, where it looks at the weight of your vehicle and what contribution it has on our roads. You're already paying for that. Gauteng is already paying over 6.18 rand per litre in terms of fuel levy. And if you were to go and check what the regulation says and what the rules around the fuel levy are saying, you realize that part of that money was supposed to go towards road infrastructure building and maintenance, and part of it was supposed to go towards the road accident fund. Go ask the road accident fund today. They are broke now. The money that is supposed to actually be going towards road infrastructure maintenance and building hasn't been going there. The other issue is that 80% of the money that is already been collected is going to an Austrian company. So that tells you that there's something sinister happening here. Money that is being collected is not used to maintain and build road infrastructure, but is going somewhere else.
Panyaza, you're campaigning on e-tolls now, a very unpopular issue, right?
They're not necessarily unpopular. Our people have expressed a view, and we agree with that view. The view is that the cost of living in Gauteng is too high. We've got the problem of petrol, food prices are high, and therefore, if you add another price, you are creating difficulties. The model of pay-user model is not objected in our country. People said we're not consulted, but also the issue of cost of living. If you go to Debat, there are toll gates, people are paying. If you go to Polokwane, there are toll gates, people are paying. What we need to preserve is that our road infrastructure plays a very important role in the economic growth and economic development of our program, of our province. If we don't protect that road infrastructure, we'll find ourselves in a difficult position to compete with other countries.
We're drawing to a close. More foreign-born migrants live in Gauteng than in all other provinces combined. Panyaza, does the ANC regard this as a problem, and what do you think needs to be done?
The African National Congress, not South African National Congress. It means that those that conceptualize and establish this movement called the ANC, they had a foresight. That is an African National Congress. It's not a South African National Congress, purely because they feel we are part of the continent and we must play a very important role. Our argument is very simple. Those that want to live, work here, they must be appropriately documented. And those that are not documented, we must assist them to work on that particular issue.
Thank you. To the DA.
Well, I think the problem is that this is a self-inflicted wound. You removed more than 60% of your SANDF, from the borders. We are saying and I'm a believer that no country or no nation has ever been able to build itself to success on its own steam, in its own thinking, in its own skills. So you need to attract people from all over, but people need to come into your country in a controlled and regulated manner. People need to be here legally so that you know who's in your country, what are they coming to do in your country. The fact that we've removed more than 60% of our defense from the borders, including the marine, that tells you that you're sitting with a bigger problem. We are now paying over 9 billion rand to protect ministers and deputy ministers a year, instead of ensuring that we're buying vehicles to make sure that our soldiers are at the borders. That's number one. Number two, you have a very corrupt Home Affairs department. Go to Marabastad. Go and ask people who are standing on queues. They will tell you, if you want to renew your permit, you have to pay 1,500 in terms of bribe. What have they done? Because this is nothing new. President Zuma went there. President Mhlante went there. Cyril Ramaphosa has gone there to say, what are the issues here that are hindering the processing of documents at Home Affairs? And until we address that problem, we're going to sit with
Thank you. The first word went to Panyaza Lesufi of the ANC, the last word to Solly Msimanga of the DA. Thank you both very much for participating tonight.
Thank you.